This is a WDBJ7 special presentation. Black History Month, Voices of Virginia. Sponsored by Member One, a division of Virginia Credit Union.
Thank you for joining us for WDBJ7's Black History Voices of Virginia special. I'm Tanisha Jackson.
And I'm Michaela Shelton. If you remember last year, we focused on the history of our hometowns and what Black history meant for each region, from Roanoke to Lynchburg to Danville and more.
And this year, we're not only looking back at history, but also highlighting Black excellence.
And we're starting with a hometown legend. Later this year, WDBJ7 will celebrate its 70th anniversary. And during Black History Month, we are profiling one of the trailblazers on our air, sportscaster Roy Stanley Miller.
WDBJ7's Joe DeShiel reports on his legacy.
Associated Press has named North Carolina's Michael Jordan as its Player of the Year.
This is how longtime viewers remember Roy Stanley, delivering the sports during his 30-year career in television. But the Wytheville native got his start in broadcasting at his hometown radio station, WYVE, while he was still in high school.
One of our favorites was Patio Party in the summertime, that he DJ'd that program every summer. And all of that was while he was in high school, maybe a junior, senior.
Roy's sister, Rhonda Miller Rogers, also remembers his visit to WDBJ7 a few years later, on Valentine's Day, 1972.
And if my recollection is correct, they talked to him, interviewed him, and hired him on the same day.
Roy recalled that day when he was honored by the Roanoke branch of the NAACP in 2000.
I walked in that building, I had an 8-inch afro, a pair of dark shades, had my shirt open, didn't have no hair on my chest, but my shirt was open, and I had on a pair of platform shoes.
Roy Stanley Miller would go by his middle name on the air.
For Channel 7 News, I'm Roy Stanley in Bedford.
To avoid confusion with WDBJ7 news director and anchor Ron Miller. And in the earliest clips we found in the WDBJ7 archive, Roy was covering news, not sports.
The new home will cost about $100,000, and it will house 16 children at one time.
Roy would eventually go all in on sports, building a strong rapport with student athletes, coaches, and fans throughout Southwest Virginia. He chose to anchor on weekends and report during the week, even after he was offered the job as WDBJ7's sports director.
And no matter where we went, we would come back to the station and get out after having laughed all day long.
Mike Stevens traveled across Southwest Virginia with Roy and saw firsthand how people embraced him.
And coaches, players, everyone would just gravitate to where Roy was just to talk to him.
We were all just teenage fools together.
Roland Lazenby was a year behind Roy at George Wythe High School, and they remained friends after both moved to the Roanoke Valley. A former newspaper reporter and journalism professor, Lazenby has written more than 50 books, including definitive biographies of Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant.
Roy was that person that broke down every kind of barrier with just the presence, the strength of his persona.
Covering a lot of the local kids in our Friday football program is, I would say, the biggest highlights of my career.
Do you think he viewed himself as a trailblazer or a role model?
No, not at all.
We sat down with Roy's children, Keisha Miller Jackson and Chris Miller. They remember him as a normal dad with an unusual job, and they want others to know that he and their mother, Katie Dudley Miller, were always there for them.
He really was the same, on camera as he was, off camera.
I hope people hear, that he loved his family. He loved his job. And he balanced them both out, to where work didn't interfere with home and home didn't interfere with work.
Keisha and Chris have their own families now, and they want their kids to know about their grandfather's life and legacy. Roy died in April 2002 after a brief illness. More than 20 years later, friends and family remember him as a role model, a devoted family man, and a talented broadcaster who left an indelible mark on Southwest Virginia.
He's been gone way too long and way too soon, but people still talk about Roy like he was just on the air this past weekend doing the sports.
He landed in the right place at the right time. and ended up doing something that he loved doing. And that's the reason I wonder how long he would have kept doing it.
It's sad. It's something you don't realize until they're, till they're not here anymore. But, I'm thankful every day, that I got to grow up with him being, my father.
And that's the way it shapes up in sports.
In Roanoke, Joe DeShiel, WDBJ 7.
Yeah, what a beautiful story there about a groundbreaking figure in our community.
Yes, absolutely. Coming up, we're traveling down to Wytheville to hear how students and educators strive for knowledge in the segregated South.
You're watching Black History Month Voices of Virginia.